Chicago really. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah. Get money, yeah.
And welcome everybody to another live edition of First and Goal with your host, me, Jay in the UP, and Dave.
What's going on, Cheeseheads?
So we are going to get right into it because we have a very special guest today. We have Andy Herman, the owner and founder of Pack-A-Day Podcast at Gutey Sports, joining us after our news updates. So let's get right into the
news updates.
Oh my God, we got some doozy news updates. Let's start off with the biggie. Frank Clark is traded to the Chiefs for a first this year, a second next year, and they swap third round picks, and there's some other lower round draft rounds picks to go ahead and give to the Seahawks. Now the Chiefs had extended him 5 years, $105 million. Frank Clark got paid. And on top of that, now we also have Patrick Peterson rumors that he's not happy. Apparently the coaches and the GMs are making him irritated, and there's a possible trade possibility. And then Jared Goff went ahead and got a fifth-year extension option, so he's getting paid $22 million next year. That's obvious, but it's good they finally did it. Another biggie I found today: the Jets are in trade talks with the Redskins from 3 to 14. It's just confirmed that they're talking, but still, Redskins love Haskins.
Yeah, and anything else there, Dave?
Also, too, the biggie, I was saving this for last. Kenny Clark has been confirmed that they are going to exercise their fifth-year option, but they're going to do it before the deadline. They haven't officially put the paperwork in, but Gutey is going to do it. Well, that's huge.
That is a big, big deal. And you know what? I think Kenny Clark very, very much deserves to be paid, but I think the overall...
He's a top 5 defensive lineman.
Yeah, and I think, but the biggest thing, though, honestly, is that he's... For the overall team going forward, you really can't sign him to big money. You have to use that fifth-year option. You know, like, it doesn't...
Well, now it secures him 2 years in.
Well, yeah, that's what I
mean. 2020 and 2021.
And you're able to use your cap a little better.
Well, I mean, yeah, it bumps his cap up a little bit, but now that Packers don't have to worry about not overpaying for Kenny because he's worth it, but putting out that much money when we have other talent we have to pay. But I'm excited for it because now I'm giddy because we can get guys like Ed Oliver or Dexter Lawrence or Christian Wilkins in the draft, and just to think of them paired with Kenny Clark is amazing.
Yes. All right. Sorry, I was a little distanced there for a minute, Dave, but of course.
Oh, you're okay. I can talk a lot. You know that.
Because everybody, you need to try to follow us on Facebook. It's the Facebook page is it's Packer J or First and Goal. Our Twitter account at First and Goal Pod. We're on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube,
we everywhere.
Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr. Search First and Goal. Follow us, like us, retweet us. Even if you're not going to listen, retweet the link, please. Get it out there. So we need your help. We're young. We're looking for it. And if you got any ideas for guests that you really want, we will try to book them. We're working on some other guys
definitely.
Right now.
Direct message us. Tweet us out.
Yes. So we want to get into this so we can get a hold and get Andy on before we run too much out of time. We're going to listen and start today by listening to what Gunakunst had to say in yesterday's presser.
Our Lord and Savior.
So let's get to this clip, and when we come back, we will have Mr. Andy Herman with us. Here you go, folks.
No, did not do that. We actually did, with Easter falling in the middle of this. We've only had this happen a few times, but a lot of our guys took off Friday night and went home to see their families on Sunday. Some of them stayed around here as well, but came back this morning and we get started. So,
how do you deal with all the information and misinformation?
I think if you've done your work ahead of time, if you've really put the work in and stuff, you kind of can sniff out the stuff that's false information and the stuff that might have some legs to it. I think you kind of address each thing as it comes, but like most people say, 90% of it is false information at this time. So,
Brian, what kind of adjustments do you make, if any, having 2 picks on Thursday night and the preparation process going into that?
No real adjustments to our preparation process at all. It may create a few more trade scenarios than when you just have the 1 pick on Thursday, but other than that, the process kind of stays the same.
Hey, Gutey, it's not like you had never been in a draft before last year, right? You were there for 20 years, but first time in the big chair. When you look back, I don't want to say surprised you, but what came as something you weren't expecting? And then what do you look back on and say, okay, I learned from this and I can be better this year?
That's a good question. I moved up here in 2012 and kind of, started to go through the trade calls. I learned a lot through that process. I think I kind of learned this leading up to the draft last year, was just like the amount of preparation from a strategic, the way things might fall was more than maybe, I had thought about it in the past, but I thought last year going into it, we felt pretty prepared. And so we really kind of followed the same kind of, template that we did last year with the guys and kind of going through different scenarios and things. So I wouldn't think we would do a whole lot different this year,
Will March acquisitions impact April decisions?
I'm sorry?
Will March acquisitions impact any decisions this year?
I'm sure in some ways it probably will. I think the biggest thing for me was just, we'd always like to attack this thing with the best player available and not really focus on too many needs. I think, the more you do in March, certainly the more confident you feel, and just sit there and picking the best player regardless of what you feel you may need.
And we are back. We'll cut it off right there because he's talking about the draft. And with that, we welcome in very special guest, Andy Herman, the owner and founder of Pack-A-Day Podcast at Scooney Sports. Thanks for joining us today, Andy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you
We're
very
not
much.
worthy.
Yes, we're not worthy, man. We are so proud to have you on. It's a big honor. Been a long time trying to work it out. Our schedules haven't quite, but we're glad to have you on. We're excited. So let's get right into this because the draft is coming up right away. There's a lot of speculation. You've run some polls. We've run some polls. What do you think is gonna happen? First of all, let's start there with the 12th pick on Thursday night.
Yeah, I wish I had more of a bold prediction here for you. This is such a tough topic to discuss because it could go a million different ways. Nothing would really shock me at this point. I do think you can kind of narrow it down. I don't think they're going to take quarterback. I don't think they're going to take running back. I don't think they're going to take a receiver. I think interior offensive linemen, corner, and safety are all out. So I think there's probably going to be someone from those other groups. I could definitely be a offensive lineman like Andre Dillard or Jonah Williams. That wouldn't surprise me. I've said Montez Sweat for a really long time, but that heart condition is really something that I'm not so sure about. And it just could go in a lot of different directions. I do think Andre Dillard could potentially really be an option there.
Dillard, now I noticed that the NFL Nation mock draft that came out today had the Packers taking Dillard at 12 and then Jeffrey Simmons at 30. that's kind of the first time I've seen anybody really go tackle there, especially considering like Burns and some of those guys were there. That surprised me a bit, Andy.
Yeah, I actually didn't see that they had selected him. So I love Dillard, and I think if you kind of connect the dots a little bit, I believe it was Brian Gutekunst who was behind the Jason Spriggs draft pick a few years ago. In fact, after they picked him, they actually let Gutekunst kind of do the interview and kind of announce to the media that
I remember that.
Jason Spriggs. Yeah. So I think that was his kind of pick. And he had the elite athleticism, and unfortunately they kind of, I guess, ignored some of the mental lapses that you would kind of have at times. And they were hoping that they could tap into that upside. But they love that physical ability. They love his agility. They love his, pass sets. And I think Andre Dillard has a lot of those same things, but at a much higher level. And then if you also kind of look at who they took last year in the draft on the offensive line, of course, took Cole Madison, right tackle, Washington State. Same thing as Andre Dillard. So they have no concerns with that system that he came from. And I think they really love that type of player. And I think this is a much better version of Jason Spriggs. When you look at the offensive tackle position, of course, Brian Bulaga, this is almost for sure his last year. And you don't really have that next up-and-coming tackle. And they are so incredibly hard to find. And I think it would really be something if they could, solidify that offensive tackle position for the next 8 to 10 years with this pick. But you want premium players at premium positions when you're picking in the top 12, and I think Dillard's exactly that.
So you would value Dillard as probably one of like the best top offensive tackle. You like him over Jawan Taylor or even a versatile guy that's really highly liked, Jonah Williams?
I do. I do have Dillard as my top-rated offensive lineman in the draft. I like Jawan Taylor. I'm not quite as high, but he'd certainly be a solid pick. And then Jonah Williams, really great player. Absolutely love him. If they took him at 12, I would be ecstatic. The nice thing about Jonah that, you can't say about Dillard is that Jonah could come in, I think, and start at right guard this year right away.
Yep.
And give them that flexibility. And you'd be able to use him right away. And then I still think he can come in and be that right tackle in the future. I mean, for Brian Bulaga. So I think you get some of that. I think he's probably going to be a better blocker, probably not quite a back blocker. But I still think you could a solid pick and have long stuff that should be fine.
So say if we take Andre Dillard or Jonah Williams, do you still start Billy Turner at right guard this year?
I think if they take Dillard, I would think Billy Turner would be the favorite in the right guard position. And I think Dillard would take some time switching to the right tackle side. And I think him being the swing tackle and being able to come in if Bulaga or Bakhtiar are injured and get a year to kind of define those two guys, I think that's a really ideal scenario for Dillard. If Jonah comes in, I think you immediately have the competition between Jonah and Billy Turner. And I wouldn't necessarily rule out a Cole Madison or even an Alex White if they really lit it up either. But I think you'd have some competition there at right guard and a few kind of wins. But I would put Jonah as a favorite start early in the season.
It feels good that we can have competition in the offensive lineman positions, man. Like we haven't had that in a while.
No.
For sure, and I think that's such an underrated aspect. People always talk about the big money that they gave to Billy Turner and say, well, they have to come in and start him. And I think that's probably the plan right now is that he's probably going to be the starter at guard. But
I'm excited for Turner.
Yeah, I mean, we've complained about the depth of that offensive line for so long that if any of these guys go down, there's nobody there to come in and play. So if you can start developing some of the depth on this team this year and start getting those players, I mean, the draft shouldn't be just a 2019 draft. This should be, especially when you're picking top 15, there should be a pick that you want a starter for 5 to 8 to 10 years. And
a blue chip cornerstone.
Exactly, and I have no problem taking an offensive tackle, even if they don't need one this year. Give me the guy that's going to help out long term.
How do you see Cole Madison fitting into this? And then that also, Andy, I have this scenario of I'm not trying to knock Lane Taylor because he's been solid, but I think you can definitely look at him and decide that you can try to find somebody that's better. He's solid, but you can still aspire to be better there. I've actually considered Billy Turner being the starting left guard and Taylor actually having to